Hey, we've got an 1100 series American lock on the bench here today. And I'm going to give you some tips and tricks and just kind of explain how I go about getting one of these guys open. So this is an aluminum bodied lock, the hardened steel shackle. It's got a removable 5-pin core, double ball bearing lockup. These guys are full of security pins. They got spool pins, they got serrated pins. And even those key pins are serrated, as you can see that number 1 pin there. And they can be challenging to learn how to pick open. So I'm going to pick it open first, and I'll talk about the tools that I'm going to use, and then I'll get into my technique and what I look for and how I go about it. Okay, we're going to start with number 1. Go to number 2. Go to number 3. There's our false set. I'm going to go to number 5. And number 4. Those are both spools. And we're open. Oh, number 1, serrated pin. It's got to go up fairly high. When we got number 2, got him set. We set number 3. That put us into a false set. Then I skipped 4 because it's a lower cut. I find it's easier to go set number 5, which was our spool, come back and we'll bump number 4, which was also a spool, and we opened up. So these are Sparrow's tools in front of us here, and this is the monkey paw set. And it goes from a deep hook down to a short hook. And I really, really like these for picking these American locks. If you look at the tip on that, it's got a little notch cut into it. And you know when you're under the pin you want to be under. A lot of picking these is knowing where you're at in the lock. If you want to be on number 2, but you're on number 3, and you try to set number 3, you might overset it, and it might throw everything else you're trying to do off. So it's important to know that you're on the pin that you want to be on. And a lot of that is just muscle memory. It's just knowing where you're at in this lock. And I think these are a great tool to help you get there. And with that, I use these Sparrows pry bar in 50,000s. I really like this guy too. It's got the knurling on it. It's just a really good pry bar. So if you struggle with these locks and you feel like you're getting lost, I highly recommend picking up this set. These are in 20,000s too. And these have got a pretty open keyway. So this 20,000s is, a hot dog in a hallway here. So it works very well. It doesn't get caught up. It's not too tight. So you can feel all that feedback that you need to get this guy open. All right, let's talk about tension a little bit. You can see this guy, it's got a deep end and a shallow end. We're going to use the deep end on this lock. But there's a little notch right here. It's got some teeth in it. And you want that to be sitting on the top of this keyway up here. So this will go in there and rest right on the top of that keyway, that little notch. You don't want this to be in like that, because now you're resting up against pin number 1. And pin number 1 is a hard one to pick as it is, but if you got this on pin number 1, it's going to mute any feedback you can get from that pin, and you'll probably just fail. You won't be able to open the lock. So it's important to make sure you got your tension wrench in as tight as to the top of the keyway as you can get it. Nice and straight. Everything aligned perfectly. And then you can get to pin number 1, and it won't be in your way. Medium tension is kind of hard to explain to you on camera, but last week I saw, shout out to Spontaneous Disintegration, he did a cool thing where he slid his pick through here, right through his finger in the tool. You don't want to be so tight that your pick isn't going to go through. And I think that's one way I can kind of explain what I mean by medium tension. Light tension is just enough to keep the pick from falling out. So I got my medium and then light. And I'm using medium to set my first serrated pins. And then once those are set and you fall into the false set, you want to go light tension. Now when I'm picking these, I like to pivot my pick off the bottom of this keyway. I'll get into position, I'll put pressure on the back of the pick, it'll pivot off the floor of the keyway, push up on the pin, and when you get those clicks, it gives you much more pronounced feedback, I think, in my opinion. All right, let me talk about my picking process. And what I like to do is I'll go in, I'll find the pin that I want to set, and I'll click it, click it, click it until it's completely set. I'll set it and forget it. And I move on to my next pin. And I find that when you actually set the pin, as soon as you're on it, and you know that pin is set, you're going to go to the next pin, do the same thing, and that pin will set as well. We're going to pretend this is a new lock. I've never picked it open before. I'm going to get my medium tension. We're going to come in here. We're going to start in the back. It's a personal preference of mine, but we're going to find number 5. Push up on it. It made a little click, but it doesn't feel like anybody's home there. I'm going to come to 4. Push up on it. Made a click, but I know that pin just overset. I can feel it up there. It feels mushy, and I know if something's not right. I'm going to reset and try again. When you overset a pin like that, like I just overset number 4, the rest of these pins aren't going to do what you want them to do. You might get some clicks out of them. Maybe you can set one, but most of the time, once a pin is overset, you just got to restart. And I guess it's hard to know when that happens, but you can absolutely feel it when it does happen. I go up, I'll push number 4 up again, overset, and it's just mush. That's the only way I can explain it to you. So we're going to reset. This time I'm going to go to number 2. But I want you to listen to these clicks I get out of number 2. That was a dull click. That was another dull click. That was a nice sharp click. I could feel it throughout the lock. Kind of feel it in the tension wrench. I know number 2 just set. Made a completely different sound. And I can move on to the next pin. So we know we want to pick our serrated pins into a false set. How do we know where those pins are? Well, that is the question of the day. Now, we went in earlier. We know nobody was home on number 5. And we know we kept oversetting number 4. So let's go the opposite way. Let's start at number 1. There's a dull click. That was a sharp click. And it kind of stopped. Using that same amount of pressure, nothing else is happening. So number 1 is set. Let's go to number 2. There's a dull click. There's a sharp click out of 2. Same amount of pressure, it doesn't want to go anymore. I could force it and make it go, but we don't want to do that because we're set. Let's go to number 3. And there's our false set. Okay, so now we're into our false set and we got to deal with our spool pins. This is kind of Newton's law is going to come into play here. Come in, find number 5. And the amount of pressure I put on my pick is the amount that my tension wrench is going to have to move until that pin sets. So I'm going to ease up, press on it, and we just set number 5. We'll come back in, we'll get to number 4. Same thing. And we're open. All right, one more time. We're going to put our tension wrench in here where we want it. Make sure we're off at pin 1. Get the right tension on it. Come in with our pick. And we're going to set number 1. We hear that click, we know it's set. Go for number 2. There's our sharp click, we're set. We're going to hit 3. There's our false set. Let's get 5. Our first spool. Reset. There's 4. And we're open. And this process works on 1200 and the 1300 series as well. Let's see, I'll even see if we can pick it open. Tension wrench in. Good tension. I'll grab my pick. Go number 5. No one's home. 4. There's that nice sharp click. 3. There's our sharp click. 2. And we're open. Now on this particular lock, I didn't even have to touch number, well, I tried to touch it, but I didn't have to set number 5 or number 1 for that matter. Just the bitting of this lock. If you look at that key, you can see number 1 is a real low cut. So you don't have to touch that one. Number 5 at the shear line as well. And actually, if we go back to this, let's start in the other direction. Let's try set number 1. Nothing happens. It goes up there, it starts feeling mushy, and you can't do nothing with it. 2 goes up and it just feels mushy. 3 sets for us. 4, I just overset 4 on that one. So let me try going the other direction again. No one's home on 5. 4, my sharp click. 3, 2, and it's open. So that's how I go about picking the American lock. You know, just takes practice. And then once you get a feel for it, you can just take that and apply it to these other locks. A lot of times they might feel a little bit different. You may need to use a little bit more or less tension on them, but the same process applies to them, and you can get them open. So thanks for watching. We'll see you next time around.